Hi, all. Welcome to this series of lectures in psychology. In this session, we shall be discussing the chapter Social Cognition. So, what would social cognition mean and what would it comprise? What are the various aspects we shall be discussing in this chapter? We'll go through. As the chapter title suggests, social cognition, it has two key words, that is social, and we've been discussing several aspects in social context in the backdrop of psychology, like social influence, we discussed in the last chapter. So, social cognition, as the second word in the chapter title suggests, so it's about your cognitive aspects, the cognitive components, the cognition, that is the various complex mental capabilities that we are designed with, which we use to perceive, to process, to interpret, and to respond to the various social information that we are surrounded by. It could be the people around us, the events around us, the locations around us, the spaces around us. All these the social components, the social aspects around us are continuously being observed by us, being assessed by us, being reasoned by us, being evaluated by us, and in some sequences we may have to respond to the social some of the social concepts, some of the social aspects. So what are those various mental capabilities, mental functions, uh, those mental components that we put to use in order to understand the social spaces around us and respond to the society around us, is what we shall discuss at length in this chapter. Okay, there we go. Let's take a deeper dive. Um, Okay, so in this chapter, we shall be covering these topics. Impression formation. How do you understand impression formation? Impression, we all make impressions as we come across a stranger, or as you come across an acquaintance, a friend, or a place, or you're experiencing an event. The impression formation is a continuous process on your mind, could be conscious or could be subconscious sometimes. So we shall take a deeper dive into impression formation, the process of impression formation. Likewise, various other components like attitude, and what are the various components that attitude comprises. How do we shape our attitude shaping, and how are attitude and behavior related, and cognitive dissonance, the concept of cognitive dissonance, and then something called elaboration likelihood model. We shall take a deep dive into each of these as we proceed in this session. Impression formation. How do you understand impression formation? So as we discussed, we have this constant tendency to continuously form impressions about people around us, about incidents around us, about organizations around us. So this is a process by which people form impressions of others that they have just met. And what are the various aspects, what are the various features that help you in forming the impression about others? It could be their appearance, it could be their dressing, it could be their mannerisms, it could be their habits, the choice of words they use, the sentence they construct, the style in which they talk, and several aspects that you consciously or subconsciously observe in others, which are helping in forming the impression about those people on your mind, right? The factors that impact impression formation include primacy effect. Primacy is something that matters to you, something that is prime to you, something that is very important to you, helps you in making an impression about, say for instance, you are listening to a lecture of your favorite subject, and when it is a favorite subject, you have all your attention into the lecture, and the tendency to form impressions about the subject, about the lecturer of the subject, is greater than something where you do not have much of your attention or focus. Likewise, stereotypes, as we understand, stereotypes is a very convenient tendency of attributing opinions to people with certain qualities or certain characteristics. So if someone who is uh, we all carry stereotypes about people based on gender, based on race, based on the geographic locations that we hail from, or based on the physiological aspects, and we arrive at the shortcut conclusions about people depending upon their appearances and their origins, right? So that's called stereotype, or something called self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling, how do you understand self-fulfilling prophecy? In other words, self-fulfilling prophecy is about a belief in yourself. It's also in certain concept, it is referred to also as a Pygmalion effect, wherein you believe in something, and as you believe in yourself, in accomplishing something, or achieving something, the belief in yourself to accomplish something results in expectations, right? And when you start believing of achieving something, you draw expectations, you make a list of expectations, that is action points for you, which will push you into certain action, right? Belief resulting in expectations, resulting in action, resulting in the results. So that's what we mean by the acronym we have stated in the brackets. The self-fulfilling prophecy is where you are trying to make yourself, say for instance, you want to believe that you can be the topper of your section in this semester, right? And it starts there for everybody, for those who believe, for who end up being the toppers, and for those who don't. For everyone, it has to begin with a self-fulfilling prophecy that yes, I have to stand on the top of the section in this semester across all the subjects. It has to begin with a belief, but very few people will inch it forward to make a list of expectations, and the expectations might include the number of hours you may have to put into preparation, into exercise, into assessment, assignments, into revisions, right? And then once you have the list, you translate that into action, right? And then finally you have, upon your examination, the result, which suggests whether your beliefs have fallen in alignment with the expectations, whether your expectations have fallen in alignment with your actions, and whether your actions have translated successfully into the result or not. So self-fulfilling prophecy is a very strong component for people to form impressions of events, of people on their minds. So those are some of the factors that help in making strong impressions on the mind. Okay, so that's a quick diagrammatic representation of impression formation. It could be the physicality of people, as we've discussed. We are all stereotypical in some or the other way. We draw shortcut conclusions based on the physicality of people, based on the non-verbal mannerisms of the people, based on certain attitudes, certain habits of people, and of course the stereotypes, as we have discussed, which form an impression, and which results in certain behavior, right? You might like a person and you might continue networking or befriending or talking, communicating, or you might dislike a person, which also reflects in a similar behavior. You might withdraw, you might discontinue communicating with the person, and hence it reflects in the behavior. So that's how we form impressions, and we reflect the impressions in our behavior. Okay, that takes us to attitude. What do you mean by attitude? It's very tough to define the word attitude exactly. There hasn't been a picture perfect academic definition of the word attitude, but loosely it can be understood as a relatively enduring set of beliefs, or relatively enduring organization of beliefs. So it's those deep inbuilt embedded belief system of an individual, which reflects in the behavioral tendencies of an individual, right? You believe that kindness is a virtue, and kindness, maybe you may have inherited it from from an observation you made from your parents or grandparents or your role models, which makes you believe from deep inside that you should be kind to others, and that over a period of time it becomes a part of your personality. It reflects in your behavior too. It comes from the deep inside the belief, which over a period of time, maybe might take years, and it makes you be recognized as a kind person. That becomes your attitude, right? So attitude is a relatively enduring organization of beliefs, feelings, and behavioral tendencies towards socially significant objects, groups, events, or symbols, right? Okay. So attitude has been broken down into various components that it comprises. What are those? Cognitive component. It starts with cognitive component, that is the thinking system of an individual, the thinking, reasoning, rationality, decisive uh, component of the human mind, wherein we observe, we perceive, we interpret, we reason, we understand, we analyze, we evaluate, we slice, we dice, we are applying all the possible, the complex mental functionalities that we are designed with, and we are trying to arrive at a logical, clear conclusion about the things, people, or events that we come across. That's a cognitive component. Affective component. Affective is, while cognitive is about the logical and rational thinking skill set of an individual, affective is more about the emotional component, right? Emotional, or the feeling aspect of the people, which is the epicenter, the point of origin of which is in one of the components of the brain called amygdala, right? The center for the origin of emotions in the human mind. The third component, that is, so that these two have to reflect finally in the visible form. Which is that visible form? Your behavior, right? So cognitively you think, affectively you feel, and then behaviorally you reflect that in your behavior. So these three put together is what you may conclude that it comprises, it forms the attitude of an individual. Okay. Attitude. So let's look at how we can understand the cognitive, affective, and the behavioral components of attitude through this quick example. So how can an individual interpret a lavish wedding? Well, one way of interpreting a lavish wedding is, why not? They have earned enough money to throw a lavish wedding. That is cognitive. I feel happy when someone can afford a fairy tale wedding, which is more about emotion, the feeling. Affective, looking forward to getting invited to such parties, which is behavioral, right? Another way of interpreting the same event can be what you see in the subsequent 3 points. Oh, what a waste. That's the cognitive. I feel upset when I see people wasting money. That is affective, or the emotional. I don't want to attend such parties and be a part of it. That is behavioral, right? So that's how we understand the components of attitude and the components of the attitude. What shapes your attitude? Where is this attitude coming from? Whatever attitude you and I wear, each one of us has a distinct, has a unique, has a distinguishing attitude, and as we said, it's a collection of deep-rooted belief system, which over a period of time becomes your value, right? A virtue that you carry out of a very deep ingrained acceptance of um, certain values that you may have inherited from your family, or your grandparents, parents, or from your role models, which becomes your personal values too. How do you understand values? As defined by Milton Rockich, value can be defined as an enduring belief. Why do we say, when do we attach a prefix enduring? Because it's not a belief that is there today and might fade tomorrow. It may not be called value. It may just be a belief which was here today and may not be tomorrow, right? That such a belief cannot be called a value. Value is something that is enduring, that has a potential of staying with you for a good amount of time, for several years or maybe decades, right? That becomes your value. Enduring beliefs that a specific mode of conduct or end state of existence is personally or socially preferable to otherwise or to an opposite or converse mode of conduct. So, for instance, if kindness has become your value out of a long duration of observation through your childhood, through your observational years of your parents, your role models, if your personality has grown up to believe deep inside that kindness is a very strong virtue, is a strong value, then it is quite likely to reflect in your behavior too, right? Or if you have believed that truthfulness, being truthful, abiding to truth is a strong value, then you are quite likely to speak only truth and avoid, prevent yourself from lying, right? So that becomes your enduring belief, which is here to stay for a number of years. Still, it is relative. It is not a permanent feature. It is, the definition suggests, it's relative, because if there is an experience somewhere down the line in your life which might almost push you, compel you to a corner to believe that oh, this is not a value that holds relevance, or that holds validity in the current world, you might think twice to carry it forward. God forbid, though. Belief, how do you understand belief? Belief is a psychological conviction, something that you're very strongly inclined towards. It's a cognitive processing or reason one gives to various events, right? You reason out, you're convinced, you are inclined, you are tilted towards that particular event or object or people, and which in other words drives your, quite likely to drive your behavior too. Okay, so values and beliefs together over a period of time are expected to shape your attitudes, which in turn is likely to shape your personality. Okay, so attitude and behavior, how are they related? Attitudes have been found to predict the behavior. Can we predict the behavior based on the attitude? Yes, but then subject to certain conditions. What are those conditions? Attitude strength. The strong and consistent attitudes predict behavior. Kindness or truthfulness may be your attitude, but then the attitude has to reflect clear, out and clear in your behavior, which might make your personality, your behavior predictable. Direct experience, attitudes based on direct experiences predict the behavior better than the attitudes which we tend to form from reading or hearing from a third sources, right? When you're directly involved in in an experience, personal experience, that is more likely to predict your behavior or shape your behavior rather than something based on what you hear or what you gather from a third source. Attitude specificity. What does that mean? Attitudes that are specifically related to behavior being assessed predict the behavior much better, right? So you believe in an attitude, in a virtue of truthfulness, and an incident that has something to do with being truthful or not is what is likely to predict your behavior than an incident which has nothing to do with truth as a virtue. Attitudes, so as specific, more specific your the value involved, more predictable your behavior gets in, right? Awareness, people who are more aware of their attitudes are more likely to behave in the ways that are consistent with those attitudes, right? So if you know that your attitude, you have a very clear attitude towards a value, say again, say if we pick hard work. Hard work is a belief. If you tend to believe that hard work gets you success. And if it becomes a very strong and rigid part of your value system, it reflects in your attitude, it reflects in your behavior, right? Once you sternly believe, sincerely believe that hard work has no substitute, you have to work hard to register success, you are quite unlikely to behave inconsistently with your attitude. Attitude and behavior consistency is a very important element of a personality. The more you are aware of your attitude, the more you are likely to be consistent. Your attitude is likely to be consistent with your behavior. And when there is an inconsistency between your attitude, that is what you believe in, and your behavior, that is how you act, this inconsistency is what is referred to as cognitive dissonance, which we shall discuss in one of the slides. There we are, cognitive dissonance. So what is cognitive dissonance? When your attitude and behavior there is a mismatch between attitude and behavior, or when there is inconsistency, or there is asymmetry, there is incompatibility between what you believe is something and how you behave is something else, right? You believe that kindness is a human virtue, whereas you are seen in disputes, rifts, fights, which is inconsistent with your belief system, right? That results in cognitive dissonance, and it's very difficult for a personality, for an individual to actually accommodate this kind of inconsistency between the attitude and behavior. Okay, so how can you reduce? So it's anybody's desire to reduce this dissonance. All of us know that hard work is important, it's essential, and it is inevitable. But then very few of us do that, and there is a dissonance. There's a great amount of dissonance between what we believe about hard work and what how we end up being, right? And is it possible to reduce the dissonance? Of course it is possible. But what determines whether you can reduce the dissonance or not? It depends on three aspects that you see here. Importance of the elements. How important is it for me to work hard and get good grades in the section? If I look at it as extremely important because I believe that it determines my future, my career, and it creates a strong image about myself in my own view. It enhances my self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth. If it is so important to me, then definitely I'll go to any extent to reduce the dissonance. Degree of individual influence. What strong an influence can I make, upon which in turn again depends on the importance that I give to a particular event. Rewards involved. How rewarding is it to reduce? If I reduce the dissonance, I agree that hard work is very important, and I push myself to work hard. I bring an alignment between attitude and my behavior, and I see that I'm working hard, so I'm being rewarded with good grades, good scores, good rank, good grades, and I'm getting recognition, I'm getting appreciation. So rewards are very high. So it's quite likely that I may be motivated to reinforce my behavior, to repeat my acts, and to reduce the dissonance between attitude and behavior further, right? So those are the components, the components that result in reduction in the dissonance between attitude and behavior. So it was Leon Festinger who, for the first time, coined the term cognitive dissonance, and he brought it to the light through his research, through his experiments around cognitive dissonance. Okay, there's another very classic example about cognitive dissonance. Everyone knows that smoking is injurious to health and it kills. But then how many have been successful in getting themselves away from this habit? Smoking cigarette is unhealthy. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. So it shows a clear alignment, a clear consonance between attitude and the behavior, and hence there is no dissonance between what this person believes and what this person behaves, right? Whereas you see the other two, the research on smoking is not conclusive, so I smoke cigarettes. Look at that. Everyone knows that smoking is unhealthy, but then there are people who smoke, who, and this is a classic community of people who are stuck in this muddle of cognitive dissonance, that is, despite knowing what they are doing is wrong, their belief system says that it is wrong, but their behavior is not in alignment with the belief system. So that's a classic example of cognitive dissonance. Okay, so there's something called elaboration likelihood model, which we shall understand from this example. But what is elaboration likelihood model, which was suggested by Richard Petty and John Cacioppo, which which in which they have put forth a dual process theory of communication, wherein you are exercising your attitude to perceive things around you and decide whether you want to channelize the communication through the central route of your interpretation, your perception, or you want to put it somewhere in the peripheral route. Now, what do I mean by central route and peripheral route? So, by definition, if you see dual process theory of persuasion, so it's communication whose intent or whose objective is to persuade people who are the targets of that communication, right? So, which the theory aims to predict when certain aspects of persuasive communication, like argument strength and source credibility, will matter and when they don't. So what is it that determines when it matters and when it doesn't? We'll take up an example. So for instance, if you are listening to these two political leaders who are throwing their arguments, their speeches, over a policy, right? One is in favor of the policy and the other is against the policy. And so what does it actually depend upon? What are the various aspects of this argument? As a listener of this communication, when you are listening to both the people, what is it that matters to you? There are three things that might influence you through the process of persuasive communication. One, the message itself, right? How strong is the message? What is the weightage of the message? What is the credibility of the message? How interested you are in the message? How well researched is the message? And what are the and the second one, the source, that is the people who you are listening to. How credible are these people? How reliable are these people? How qualified, how educated, how enlightened are these people to share an opinion about the whatever message they are delivering? So these two form a component, and finally it's the target, that is yourself, right? How interested you are anyway in what is being told, how motivated, how does it matter to you, what is the significance that this particular subject of the topic holds to you, what is the importance to you. So here we split your persuasive, how persuaded you are or how persuaded you are not out of this communication. We split your processing of the information into two levels, that is the central and peripheral. Central, when your interest levels, you are actually processing the entire information through the central route of persuasion. When your interest levels are very high, the motivation levels are very high, and the importance that the topic holds to you is very high. And when you believe that the message and the source that is communicating the message are actually credible, reliable, and when you are inclined to listen to them, you are actually processing the information through the central route of your reception system, and which is quite likely to change your attitude. Whereas you would choose a peripheral route when uh, your interest, that is target, that is your interest levels in the topic is low, you're not at all motivated, and you don't see much of an importance to be given to the topic, and you don't see the people uh, communicating or trying to persuade you or as quite reliable or credible sources. You don't see the message coming to you in a very emphatic, convincing manner, and hence you might as well just throw the entire communication through a peripheral route where you might just listen to, and there may be a temporary reception of the communication, but it may not be likely changing the fundamental beliefs of yours or fundamental attitude of yours towards that particular topic. So uh, this is what Petty and Cassioppo had meant by the dual process theory of persuasion. You are more likely to be persuaded for a long period of time through due to an attitudinal change when your target, message, and the source characteristics are high in degree, whereas you are likely to channelize the entire thing through a peripheral route, leading to a temporary change in the belief about the topic when the target, source, and message characteristics are low in degree. So that's what is suggested by the duo of researchers. So it also suggests as to how you should design your communication when you think that it is essential for you to make the receivers of your communication. It could be you could be delivering a speech, you could be making a presentation, or you could be participating in a debate or an argument, and you have to make sure that the information that you are sharing is being processed through the central route of their reception so that it changes the attitude. So for instance, if you look at these presidential speeches during the US elections, or during the members of parliament when they are contesting for the MP elections in the context of India, when they are delivering speeches, the leaders are essentially engaged in they're trying their best to make to deliver such speeches which hit the central route of processing the information, rather than making the people throw it through the peripheral, so that because they have to hit on the attitudes of the people. So that's why you see them picking some of the very strong and hard hitting topics which hit on the central route, which draw the attention of the people centrally rather than peripherally, right? Okay, so that gets us to the close of the chapter Social Cognition. That's pretty much about it. We'll get back with another topic shortly. Till then, see you all.